Do you have a Dallas famous moment? Whether you've brushed shoulders with a celebrity in DFW or had your own 15 minutes of fame in the city, we want to hear about it. Send us a DM or email or a voice message to share your story to be featured on an episode of the podcast. We look forward to hearing from you, and thanks for your support. Foundation 45 is a 501c3 nonprofit that funds counseling services for mental health, addiction, and suicide survivors. In addition to providing services, it works to break the stigma surrounding these topics. Foundation 45 recognizes that musicians, artists, and creative types are often at a higher risk for issues with mental health and addiction. The organization's goal is to serve the Dallas-Fort Worth creative community by providing free, top-tier mental health and recovery services. You can learn more about Foundation 45 at foundation45.org. Foundation 45. Live fast, die old. I'm Andrew Sherman. I'm a Texas transplant who has always been in pursuit of art as a career. I've played in bands, pursued an acting career in Hollywood, but I found it behind the lens of a camera here in Dallas, Texas. I was born in New York. I've lived in Chicago, Los Angeles, Austin, but I love Dallas. There's a magical artistic scene in Dallas that mostly goes unnoticed to the outside world. This podcast is focused on what makes it so special and the people who make it thrive artistically. If you don't live here, and even if you do, you might not have heard of them. This is the Dallas Famous Podcast. So who you gonna be? Who you gonna be when you're all grown up? Who you gonna be? Who you gonna be when you're all for us? Yeah. This week on the Dallas Famous Podcast, we're excited to welcome Bri Sargent. Bri is a classically trained cellist and bassist, and she's deeply rooted in the Dallas music scene. As a co-leader of the avant-garde jazz funk band Skinny Cooks, Bri brings a unique sound that blends jazz, funk, and experimental elements as well as pedals. She has performed with artists like Alejandro Escovedo, the Polyphonic Spree, and she's contributed to many Grammy-nominated projects. In this episode, we dive into her musical journey and the exciting projects on the horizon for Skinny Cooks. She doesn't pull any punches in this one, so stay tuned for an inspiring conversation with one of Dallas's most creative musicians, Bri Sargent. Here it is. Hello from Deep Ellum, Texas. We're back at the Deep Ellum Community Center. I've got Bri Sargent sitting with me.
Whoop, whoop.
Most elusive guest that I've had. Yeah. No, it's because, it's funny. Like, I feel like I get one cancellation a week, and it's either me or the guest. I cancel as much because, I'm not making money yet. And so if there's work, it's work. Or there's life, it's life. And if we're not doing anything, let's get together. So here we are.
Here we are, finally.
Yeah. So I first met you on the Chevy Music Showcase with
Reinventing
Jude.
That was a minute ago.
Yeah.
What year was that?
Gosh, that was...
Oh, my God.
15?
That was almost 10 years ago, dude.
Yeah.
And you were in California at the time?
Yeah, that was the first time I came to Dallas, was that shoot. And we were the only band that we actually hung out with. Like, we went to Jude's little Junius Heights treehouse.
Yep. Dang, you're taking me back.
Yeah.
Those were good times.
It was good. Yeah, it was fun. It's funny, too, because, like, you guys were that band, but Skinny Cook was already around at that point, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that was just something y'all were doing in addition.
Yeah, Nigel played with her first, and I don't remember how I'd end up. I had went to a show once at Sundown in Granada, and I was like, man, this is some really good shit. Like, what is this? And he introduced me to Jude and was like, hey, I play bass, but I play cello too. So I kind of ended up doing both. And I mean, at that time, Skinny Cooks was already a thing. So usually when I'm on stage with Skinny Cooks, I have tons of stuff on stage.
You mean like pedals and stuff?
Yeah. Oddly enough, I've consolidated / sold a lot of my pedals for various reasons. Eventually, I want to do like the whole iPad thing with the pedal board in the software, just to make it more streamlined and modern, because even though pedals are cool, it's a pain in the ass sometimes with like feedback and
and like one cable is off,
exactly it. I hate dealing with that. Oh my God. Yeah, you know how it is.
Totally.
But at the time, I at first I just started with cello and Reinventing Jude, and then I brought the cello and the keyboard, and then I got more pedals, and then I started doing background vocals and all that stuff. So I just kind of the two sort of melted into each other. But yeah, that was a fun band.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I got a lot of questions about them melding, but we'll get to that. We're going to start with, you're from Dallas, right?
Yes, born and raised.
Yep. Where what part?
Pleasant Grove, East Dallas, my mom's side, and dad's side, West Dallas, Highland Hills. So, not Highland Park. So I'm not from those neighborhoods. But I mean, just me being a classically trained cellist, I've been around. I've been around a ton of people from my part of town. And when I went to finish high school at Interlochen Arts Academy in Michigan, I had classmates from all over the world, like South Africa, Macedonia, Canada, everywhere. Wow. So I've kind of had to be placed in different situations, sometimes when I was prepared for it and other times when I wasn't. But
right. How did you first what was the first moment that you're like hearing music or seeing an instrument firsthand, or what was the moment that you kind of was like, that's kind of cool?
Well, my dad at one time in Dallas in the late 80s and 90s was one of the best drummers in Dallas. He was one of the most well-respected musicians, and he's also a preacher. So when we were younger, of course, when I tell people I grew up in church, that's exactly what I mean. Like 7 days a week, I was always in church, and I could not get away from it. Both sides of my family are religious, so when I thought I was getting away from it going to my dad's side, absolutely not. I mean, my granddad is still, he still has his own church. So the first ever memory I remember of seeing a musician was my dad on drums, and I was just staring at him like, oh my God, that's so cool. And me and my older brother, actually, he used to play drums. He doesn't much anymore. He's a really good producer. He just doesn't really do much with it outside of a hobby. But yeah, that's when I knew for sure. I was like, every kid's like, and I'm a daddy's girl too. I'm one of four, and I'm the only girl.
Okay.
So I was already kind of, stuck under my dad, and I just thought that was the coolest thing. So I was really, I don't even know how old I was. I was very, very young. I couldn't tell you how old I was, but yeah, that was probably it.
Okay, he's playing drums, so how did you get to the cello?
Interesting. Well, I didn't start off as a cellist. I started off studying piano and percussion around 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
So I did that up until I was maybe 10 or 11. I actually did that up until I was 12, and then I started to get into more instruments. In elementary school, I was taking the long way back to class, and I walked by the orchestra room, and I saw a bunch of my friends in there. I was like, what are they doing? And, hindsight is 20/20. I thought it sounded cool at the time, but it probably sounded really bad. But there was something that I haven't done yet. And I'd already taken piano in school too. I did dance and all that other stuff. It was something different, and I loved music. I was already accustomed to reading sheet music, so I was like, if I just read the notes, then I could probably pick it up. And first I started off on violin. I liked strings, but it was just uncomfortable and it sounded awful. Like my mom was miserable for the first couple of years that I was playing violin. It just sounded bad. And I still have really big hands, and the instrument was just too small. So I went to viola. That was a little better, but it was still uncomfortable. So my orchestra teacher asked me if I wanted to play cello. There weren't that many kids playing cello. And as soon as I sat down with it, it felt the most comfortable. And even when I played wrong notes, it sounded good to me. So it kind of stuck with me at that point.
Is that normal to like go through the different string instruments to find yours? Typically,
yes, that's what you do. Unless the parent is really adamant about their kid learning a particular instrument, generally, you would go through smallest to largest.
Gotcha. And I saw that you did a DSO Young Strings program. Yeah,
that's the program that, I was introduced to that program through school. So, my orchestra teacher at the time, David Large, shout out to Mr. Large, he got in touch with, so I was at Lanier for elementary school, and he was the orchestra teacher at Griner, but our orchestra teacher at the time, I think he was on sabbatical, so he came in and he did our classes, and he basically killed two birds with one stone, did our classes and recruited for Griner. I was going to go to Griner for violin. I was playing all three instruments, violin, viola, and cello, but I was going to go to Griner for violin. And he asked me, he was like, hey, you're really good at cello. You want to go to Griner for cello? We really need cellists. And I was like, sure, whatever. And I just continued to fall in love with it. And he got in touch with my teacher, Mimi McShane, God rest her soul. And he told her, hey, I have this kid that I think would be really great for the program. And that's how it started my 7th grade year. And she kind of basically put me on a crash course, because with classical instruments, you really want to start when you're, fresh off your ABCs. So me starting in my double digits, especially starting cello and doing it seriously at 12, that's late to some people's standards. So she put me on a pretty intense crash course, and Young Strings gave us all instruments and free lessons with members of the Dallas Symphony. So I mean, looking back on it, it's a pretty badass opportunity.
Yeah.
But I mean, of course, we're kids. We don't know shit.
You didn't get that was like.
Yeah,
really
no,
cool.
We didn't really get it, and we didn't get why our parents were so serious about it too. They're like, oh, free lessons? Okay, let me look up how much that normally costs. Oh shit. Free instruments? Okay, let me look up how much this instrument actually costs. God damn, like, so.
Yeah, the instrument thing's huge.
Oh my God. Oh man, a set of so how much do you think a set of guitar strings costs?
I think now it's what, like 15, 20 maybe?
Okay. That's really cute. A set of cello strings for my cello on the low end is probably $350.
Oh.
$350.
Wow.
On the low end.
Wow.
Yeah. So maintenance is it's a thing.
How long do those last?
If you take care of them, okay, if there's anybody that's listening to this that is a classical, just don't crucify me. So if you take care of them, I would say anywhere from 3 to 4 years.
Wow. Okay. You're not snapping those strings.
No, they do snap though. But that's more often violin strings, since they're so thin.
Mm-hmm. Those are cheaper though, I'm guessing.
Yeah, but not by much. I mean, maybe $150, $200 for violin strings.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I guess if they're still, that's a lot of money.
It is.
You're not just jumping into that.
No, you got to really be serious about it, because it's not just the instrument you have to maintain. You have to maintain your bow too. Also a very wide price range. They could cost anywhere from $100 to several $1,000s just for the bow with the stick in the hair.
Wow.
Same with an instrument. It can cost anywhere from a few hundred to several thousand or millions of dollars.
Sure. Yeah.
So.
Wow. So this is like we haven't really gotten to your college yet, right? This is all pre-college. Mm-hmm. Are you only listening to classical music at this point, or are you also listening to modern music?
So you mean before college?
Yeah.
Well, Mostly classical. At the time before college, I was really heavily into, I guess, the romantic era, so Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, and then I later on started to get into Impressionism and 20th century, Debussy, Ravel, Shostakovich, all that type of stuff. But, because I'm from an extremely religious family, there's a lot of gospel. I'm a church musician as well now, so I have to listen to a lot of gospel, but that's the first genre that my ears ever heard as a human being, because I grew up in the church, so right. I can't really get away from it. So there's a lot of gospel, classical, and my typical teenage stuff, R&B, hip hop, but
right.
For the most part, yeah.
You're not composing anything at this point, or you are?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, you are? Okay. So
yes.
Talk about that for a second.
So I didn't really start composing until I was 16, so like my sophomore year of high school. Again, very much like a Beethoven head, and in high school, I started to get into chamber music, like string quartets and stuff like that, and different iterations of chamber music. And it fascinated me how the same chords and the same structure and the same everything that you have in a full symphony can be consolidated into a very small ensemble, and it at times has more of an impact. So I wrote a string quartet when I was 16, and it wasn't bad. It sounds like a Beethoven quartet, or something thick like I would say a marriage between Beethoven and Tchaikovsky. It was just really intense and really thick, and my mom helped me send it off to get copyrighted, like the whole DC thing, like sent it off in the mail to DC and got a copy of the copyright back. But I messed around with composing a little bit before that, but once I actually got the software when I was 16, and that's when I really started to write. Gotcha.
Yeah, because it's just fascinating to me, because you are such a dual musician, where with the classical and the modern, I don't know what else to call it. It's very avant-garde to me.
They influence each other. I tell my students this all the time. Miles Davis said that his favorite composer was Prokofiev, Mozart and Prokofiev. If you listen to jazz in that era, and then you go and listen to like Prokofiev or Gershwin or something like that, they rip a lot of classical stuff and put it in their jazz tune. So everything influences everything, in my opinion.
Sure. But you're not writing lyrics. You're not writing melody. Well, I guess you're writing melody, but you're not writing lyrics initially, right? That comes later.
Oh, no. Yeah, that's later on. So after this is very telling of what I was listening to at the time. So after I wrote the string quartet, a couple of months later, I wrote 2 gospel songs. One of them was it was just overly ambitious, but I remember taking them both to the minister of music at St. John Church Unleashed, the church I grew up in Grand Prairie. Clark Joseph, shout out to him too, who is, oh man, he's definitely helped polish my artistry in my early years. But I took both of them to him, and the one that was overly ambitious. So in gospel music, especially when I get somebody, no offense, especially when I get somebody to sub for me that's white, and I don't know if they know how to play that iteration of music, the way that I explain it to them is, okay, so gospel is basically at different times, it can be either jazz, R&B, or country, with a choir.
Huh.
All pretty much follow the same form, but old hymns can take on the form of country, or just like really old gospel. It sound like country tunes, and some of them like really fast walking bass lines and sharp nines and sharp 11, like tensions all over the place. There's your jazz, and then like that backbeat kind of R&B. All three can be present. And then when I explain it that way, like my buddy Austin Kroll, who subs for me at Hamilton Park, when I explained that to him when he first subbed for me at the church, he was like, oh, okay, I think I kind of get it. And then I sent him the songs that we were playing, and he was like, that makes so much sense.
Huh.
So
are there like rules about gospel? I mean, is there like something you can't, besides lyric, I guess?
I mean, yes and no. There are certain sonic cultures and, I suppose, normalcies that are always present in gospel. But I mean, if I'm being honest with you, you take somebody like Kirk Franklin, when he first, I think his first, all of his albums, honestly, but in the 90s, well, really all the time, I can't even say the 90s, church people are mad at him again because he has a song with Glorilla. I mean, and when he did his New Nation project and God's Property, it was a heavy hip hop influence, extremely heavy. And then before that era was like what me and my friend Amber Baker like to call the sexy gospel era. It sounded like, a slow jam, but with Jesus on top, you know what I mean? So, I mean, there are rules, but not really. Kirk Franklin is one of those dudes that just takes the rules and he makes origami out of it. So, nice. I mean, yes and no. There are certain things that are kind of understood, but nowadays there's a lot of room for artistic liberties,
gotcha,
if you will.
Gotcha. Okay, let's get back to your story. So, okay, you're going to college, I think I had it somewhere.
Baldwin Wallace. That's in right. Berea, Ohio, which is 10 minutes from Cleveland.
Okay. And I guess I skipped over, you went to Interlochen in there?
Yeah, that was my senior year of high school.
Okay.
So I did 3 years I did a 3-year bid at Booker T. But I went to Arts Magnet up until my junior year of high school. And I actually went to the summer camp that Interlochen has the summer of my sophomore year, so going into my junior year. And it completely changed me as a musician and a person, because I had done summer camps for music before that. Since I was 12, I've been on the road in the summers for forever, but it was just something different about Interlochen. I had been surrounded by other classical musicians from other countries and things like that from another camp called Apple Hill in New Hampshire. Great place. I miss it so much. One of my really good friends, Masha, she is, her ethnicity is Israeli, but she grew up in Russia. Really, she's a really good friend of mine still to this day. So I had been exposed to that before, but I think that because there were so many of us at Interlochen, like at the camp, there were thousands of us there, and we were all really, really serious about what we did, and it validated everything for me, honestly. So after that camp, even my mom told me that she noticed a significant change in just kind of how I saw things in life and just being a musician. And I had the cello teacher at Interlochen, hey, Dr. Campbell, he asked me if I wanted to come to the school. He was like, hey, you've improved quite a bit, and I think it'd be a great place for you. And I told my mom about it. I wasn't sure what she was going to say because, I mean, who wants to send their kid off when they're 17 to Traverse City, Michigan, going from, you know, the desert of Dallas to the tundra of Michigan as a naive 17-year-old. But my cello teacher, Mimi, being in the classical world for so long, she knew pretty much everybody there was to know. She's like, oh yeah, I'm really good friends with Dr. Campbell. So they talked and they thought it was a good idea, and my mom thought it was a good idea. So I spent my senior year in Michigan before I went to Cleveland. So I spent about 5 years of my life in the Midwest.
That's plenty.
Yeah, I think that's enough. That's enough.
I have friends, but I don't need to go back. Okay, so you come back to Dallas. How did you get? Well, so you're a classical musician, right? But then you somehow.
I'm waiting for this question. I already know this is going.
Yeah, you end up like with Reinventing Jude. You meet Nigel. How did you get into that side of the world?
Oh boy, so so the Old City Tavern. Right. That was on Main Street. Yep. My buddy Justin Dyer, he used to host an open mic night, and I was just online trying to find places to play. I really didn't have much direction.
What though? Like
I didn't have much direction.
Okay.
I wanted to do something.
Gotcha.
And I wasn't really feeling the whole audition for orchestras for a career. I did not want to do that. So I think I saw it on Craigslist that there was an open mic at City Tavern. So I pull up with my cello. I don't remember if I had a pickup. No, I think I was mic'd. So if you know the Old City Tavern, it was reminiscent of God, what was that place on Lower Greenville that shut down? I cannot remember the name. That's disappointing. But anyway, this stanky ass dive bar, but a lot of fun. So I didn't know what I was going to play at the time, but I had signed up already, and he called my name, and I was like, I really don't know what to do, because in college, I became friends with a bunch of the kids that were in the jazz program, but I didn't really improvise. I kind of did, but I could get away with it because I was a composer, and the whole perfect pitch thing, I could, compose on the spot, so to speak. And I had been playing bass for a few years, so I was like, let me just go up there and play something. So me being fresh out of college, super conservatory nerd, I'm like, you know what? I remember our professor saying that Bach used to improvise at the organ, so I'm just going to play Bach. So I'm up there playing freaking, I think I played, it was either the prelude to the first or second suite. And hindsight is 2020. I can't believe I did that.
Right.
But towards the end, and I mean, it's not untrue. I mean, Bach used to just sit at the organ and improvise for hours, though it doesn't sound like, Kenny Jarrett or anything like that. We had to do some of that in college too, because there are a lot of different versions of the same piece, so they call them editions. So if you get one edition versus the other, they may have a few different notes than the other edition. So I mean, it was kind of present, but not enough for anybody to say, hey, I went on stage and improvised. So I felt a little silly at the time, but I was like, you know what? I'm already here. I'm drinking some whiskey. It doesn't really matter. They're all drunk. I'm about to be drunk. So let me just do this and get it over with. And the response it was actually a really good response, and it shocked me. I was a little offended. I was like, wait, what? Why are y'all clapping so much? Like,
you're offended.
It's just, what are y'all doing? But I took my seat, and for the very last song, Justin always got up with his band, and my other buddy Mark that plays guitar. Excellent guitarist. They got up and played something, and he was like, hey, why don't you get on stage and play something with us? It's in G major. You comfortable with that? And I was like, yeah, I mean, why not? And again, the whole being a composer and having perfect pitch, I could feel my way around it, and it actually felt really good, which that's one possibility of a classically stringed player doing something like that. The other possibility is it being awful. They're either going to get up there and play and it's going to be, you know, pretty decent or pretty good, or they're going to get up there. Three possibilities. That's the first one. Second, I'm going to get up there and play and it's going to be terrible, or they're going to get up there and just not play at all.
Please,
But yeah, and I played with Justin and his band for a few years, and Nigel and I actually met through you probably know him, Ian Saint. We went to college together, actually.
Wow.
Yeah, and then after he graduated, he got a job in Atlanta, and then he ended up getting a job in Dallas. So we linked up as soon as he moved out here. And he was like, hey, do you know anything about Deep Ellum? I was like, yeah, man, let's go. And he had friends in Boston at Berkeley, and he was like, hey, I know this guy, Nigel. I think you guys would really hit it off. Like, y'all you have the same musical interests, and you actually kind of look the same too. I'm like, man, shut up. You might look like me. So he came down here, I think, in 2011 to visit Ian. They were already friends, and I looked at him. I was like, oh shit, we do kind of look alike. And it's funny because my mom, she would joke and ask me every now and then, you sure your dad doesn't have any other kids? I'm like, no, that's not my brother, Mom. I promise. And we get it a lot, like to this day. So y'all are siblings, right? Like, no, we're not.
Interesting.
We're not related.
I never saw it that way, but okay.
But he actually met me as a bassist. He didn't meet me as a cellist. We used to jam at the studio formerly known as Farrellock Studios.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Thanks to Jeff Lloyd, who is really the reason why we're even a band, because he would let us go in there whenever we want, and we would jam together. And the first couple of times Nigel and I played together, it was really creepy how it just worked. I don't. You know how it is, like you take a test shot and you're like, damn, I don't have to do anything at all. Like we didn't have to do anything at all. It was there. Like we could read each other's minds.
Which is fascinating because for people who haven't heard it, I mean, you're playing like either cello, electric bass. He's playing vibraphone, xylophone, and it doesn't sound like anything that I'm familiar with. Maybe
likewise.
Maybe there's something out there, but I couldn't put my finger on. Anyway, I continue. I'm sorry.
But I didn't. So we didn't meet each other on our principal instruments. He was playing keyboard and I was playing bass. And the first time we jammed together, we wrote a song. Second time, we wrote 2 more songs. And then the third time when we had a show together at Farrellock, we wrote another song on stage. So in 2 weeks, we wrote 4 songs, barely even knowing anything about each other. And I mean, I have a tinge of impulsivity in my in my personality, but for the most part, not really. I mean, I don't really like a whole bunch of riffraff. I'll go there if I have to, but for the most part, I just kind of like to stay in the background. But I was really adamant. I was like, say, man, you got to figure out a way to get down here. Like, this is nothing like I've ever experienced before. Like, this is some really good stuff. And he agreed. And so the next year in 2012, he moved out here, and we've been doing things ever since.
Yeah. You're still doing gigs.
We're working on a pretty big project right now with the New Texas Symphony Orchestra. We're actually, we're the guest artists for their concert in May, and we get to do 3 tunes. So, yeah, it's super cool.
That's wild.
And it's wild because when he finally moved down here, and we were, I swear, I was at Nigel's house or he was at mine pretty much on average 5 days a week. And we would be writing from 8 until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. For years, wrote a bunch of music. And after we finished recording our first EP, we were just kind of sitting thinking, like, man, it would be cool to hear these songs with this or this or this or that. And then he was like, I could hear this stuff with an orchestra too. And I was like, hell yeah, man. So it's just, it's insane how it's actually happening.
Yeah.
So we're repurposing 2 songs that we've already written for a small Skinny Cooks band and orchestra. And then we're basically writing like a Skinny Cooks symphony. So
wow.
yeah, man, I'm pretty stoked about that one. That's gonna be pretty badass.
Really cool. You played with a few other. What's the Odysseus Chamber Orchestra?
Yeah, so that was it's now the McKinney Philharmonic, but that was the first and only orchestra that I played with in Dallas. I've thought about going back, but I'm just kind of in a different place right now with, I think I'm burnt out on orchestra, at least being a member of the orchestra. Now, as far as like what I'm doing with Skinny Cooks now, I'll do that all day because I kind of have control of the narrative. I don't really get along with conductors. I never have. Like they're assholes, and I'm the one that's going to say something in rehearsal. A lot of other people may like try to be politically correct about it or dress it up nice. I'm not going to do that because you wouldn't say that to me off stage. So why demoralize and embarrass me in front of everyone? I'm gonna do the same thing. And that's a normal thing. So I probably wouldn't even be welcome in orchestra because I did I did the Women in Classical Music Symposium. I believe that was last year, which is even wild for them to even consider me for something like that because I don't do classical music much anymore. But I was like, hell yeah, I'll do it. I'll sit on the panel and talk some shit. And that's exactly what I did. So I was sandwiched in between a record executive for Deutsche Grammophon. And then on the other side was, I think she was a PR for big name classical musicians, and that's me. But it worked because I'm playing a classical instrument in a very unconventional setup, so it sort of worked. In a way, we were all never mind. We were not all saying the same things. But I will say that the other 2 panelists, they're very much for the artists' rights, and they're not, too keen on the politics, which, I'm cool with that. But I really wish that somebody would have recorded that. I basically said that orchestra is elitist and racist, and they don't even need to take themselves that seriously because it was started several centuries ago, and all those people are dead. Like, they're not gonna know. You know what I mean? Like,
sure,
it's not really a big deal. Like, we're all playing music. No one is the king or the queen. It's not really that serious.
Right.
And it's not, and honestly, it's everybody is racist. Like, everybody. Like, if you're black in an orchestra, you have a tendency to be racist. If you're Mexican or Latino of any iteration, Asian, white, everybody does it. And it's become more of like a defense mechanism versus like, I have power over you, because there's just been so much drama in the orchestra world anyway, like people losing money and orchestra strikes and this and that. Like, it's a mess. So I wouldn't even want to be in that anyway. But I basically sat up there and said, yeah, the whole institution is racist. Everyone sucks. It's elitist. And I'm glad I don't play an orchestra anymore, to that effect.
Yeah. What was the reaction to that?
Well, Kim told me, who, I don't know if she's still the CEO of the symphony. She may still be, but she was like, if this is a stage, she's right there. And she's looking dead at me. And she's just like, and I'm just sitting there sipping my water like, okay, what's the next question? Like, I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
But a few people were nodding their heads, and everyone else was just kind of looking around like, oh shit, what is about to happen? But after the symposium, a few people came up to me, including members of the symphony. They're like, it was really inconspicuous and hilarious how they did it. A couple of members of the symphony, they walked up to the podium, and they were like, hey, so I play in that band over there, and I agree with you, you're right.
Wow. Yeah, I'm sure.
And I got here's my card, send me an email.
Nice.
And the director of the New Texas Symphony Orchestra, she came up to me, she was like, she gave me her card, she was like, I would love to work with you. And I saw her card and I was like, oh shit, you would? Okay. That's interesting. But that's how that gig started. But yeah, I don't think I'd ever, no, I wouldn't be a member of the orchestra, but I'll guest artist all day. Like, that's cool with me.
Yeah, not as much commitment, I guess.
No, I can, like I said, I can control the narrative, and I'm not in the ball and chain, so gotcha. I'm cool where I'm at.
Gotcha. How did you get into, and how was the experience with Polyphonic Spree?
Buffy had just gotten the Hamilton gig 2017 to 2018, and she had asked the drummer of my band, Max, if he knew anyone, and he recommended me. So I went on a Polyphonic Spree crash course for a couple of days, and I played with them for some years. Now it's kind of on a case by case, not really a member basis. I screwed that up. That's totally on me. But Polyphonic Spree is the shit. Like, oh, so much fun. Tim is like probably one of my favorite people in the world. I had already heard of the band before I was slid into it. I'd recognized a couple of songs, and I remember a lot of my college buddies having listened to them. So when I did like my Google research, and I saw like MTV and that episode of Scrubs, I was like, oh shit, like right. What the so, and then when you meet Tim, you don't get that vibe from, he's just like, he's the coolest dude you'll ever meet,
and
ever.
He's got like that accent, the Texas accent even. That's
he's like a quintessential Southern hospitality. Yeah. Best times I've ever had in my life were with Polyphonic Spree, and I'm super glad that I ended up on, so we did the covers record, I think in 2020, and the record that just dropped, which is so good. That's such a good record. I'm glad that I'm permanently on ink with Polyphonic Spree. Not a lot of people can say that, so I'm glad I'm a part of the few that can say that they were on records with Polyphonic Spree. But I mean, there's no bad blood. We're still very cordial. Every now and then, Chris Penn, he'll hit me up if I know anybody or if I'm available to play. But I mean, that's just kind of how they are too. Like, I mean, there have been several people in and out of that band too. So I can't lie. Like, at first I was sick. That's one gig for sure that everybody has, like one gig or one job that it's like the one that got away. But I mean, they're such good people that they're not the type to hold anything against you. You know, shit happens and life's you, or you're just an idiot. Like it was a combination of both. It was life and just me being a dumbass. But
right. I mean, you know, we've all been there.
Yeah, we've all been there. And I mean, I'm getting older, but I'm still pretty young. I'm 36. You know, it's not like it's
You're
not the end. It's not the end. Yeah, you know, I'm a baby to older people, and I'm old to younger people. So
right. But I mean, you know, you still
I've
got a lot
plenty of time.
in you,
I got plenty of time.
What is there anything that I skipped over that you wanted to talk about? I mean,
dang, put me on the spot. I don't know, man.
I mean, you mentioned Skinny Cook stuff, so we know that's coming out, and you're going to be doing those shows next year.
Yeah, that's in May, and then a week before the concert, we have a community concert that we're doing at South Dallas Cultural Center, and we're doing we're taking it all the way back to our Sundown at Granada days, where Yoon is finally getting back on board. I need to call him. I haven't seen him in forever. Yeah, that's oh God, I love him to death.
That was the original Jude band. Was you three?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep, exactly. He was a drummer, and then it was Chris on bass.
Oh, that's right, Chris on bass.
Yep.
Yeah.
Andrew played violin. I played cello. Then Nigel and Jude. But Yoon is going to be running visuals. That's going to be super cool. I can't wait. Yeah, we're pulling out all stops.
Cool.
I can't wait.
All right. Well, like maybe we can end it with just like how you feel the state of Deep Ellum is these days.
Ooh, Deep Ellum. It's an ever changing little microcosm. I think there are too many damn restaurants down here, but I also think that has not at all deterred the very potent culture that's down here. If anything, I talk all the time to people about how there's so many incredible musicians, artists, visual and otherwise, that are just right next door. Like, I'm sitting across from one of the best like videographers and photographers that are out here at, period. So everyone is so great and in so close proximity. So I believe that there's a lot of fight left in Deep Ellum because of that. The writings are on the wall. We can see what is trying to happen, but the music is a lot louder than the forks and knives, if you know what I mean. Like, it's not going anywhere, even though I hate to see that some venues are closing, but musicians aren't backing down. Like, I can't wait for this block party. Like, that's gonna be that's gonna be insane. But I think now we're more aware of how important it is to fight for our place here, because I mean, when people come to Dallas, hey, where can I go hear some music? The first thing people say is Deep Ellum. But we don't want people to come to Deep Ellum and all they see is like somewhere to do brunch and a rooftop chill, But even still, we're placing ourselves and keeping ourselves in Deep Ellum, because that's one of the original cultures of music in Dallas. I mean,
kind of in the country, yeah,
in the country, from blues to jazz to rock, especially rock. Like, so it's twofold. I think we have to stand firm against the powers that be.
Yeah, well said. I like the music is louder than the forks and knives.
It is.
Have you said that before?
No, I just came up with that.
That's like a T-shirt.
I know.
Anyway, Bri, I'm glad we finally got together.
Yes,
and got
this was excellent.
A lot of your story. It was really cool. So yeah, we'll be looking out for Skinny Cooks in May, but before that as well, and all the other things that you might pop up that you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, if I pop out with a trio gig, I'll try to make sure to post it. I'm so bad about that. But
yeah, that is part of the game.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks again, Bri.
Right on.
I'd like to thank Bri Sargent for joining me. You can check Skinny Cooks out everywhere. The song we heard was from them. It's called Complacency. Get your own Dallas Famous Podcast t-shirt. The link is now available in the show notes. Thank you again to the Deep Ellum Community Center for letting us record there. Theme song, Unstoppable by Salim Nuralla. Thank you for listening. Please like, subscribe, follow, all the good stuff, and share it with your friends. We'll see you next time.